103.2 Preston FM.
Your community.
Your radio.
I'm joined in the studio now with my next guest. It is Roger. I have to apologise because I've been calling you the Lancashire Military Museum, and it's the Lancashire Infantry Museum we're talking about this morning, isn't it?
That's all right. We answer to anything.
Oh, brilliant. So, feeding on from an interview we had earlier, we've been talking to Jackie Hohol.
Yes, we know Jackie very well. Yeah.
And she'd been helping out at the museum and everything. She's
one of the ladies who we really welcome, because some of our visitors come and they really get interested, they really get intrigued, and they really get involved, and that's Jackie. And it's very good to have her. So,
what's happening at the museum tomorrow?
Well, it's being formally reopened after a 4-year project to upgrade and modernise it, basically. The museum, in one form or another, has actually been there in Fulwood Barracks for 90 years. It was first opened back in the 1920s as the Museum of the Loyal North Lancashire Regiment, which was Preston's own regiment. And the regiment at that time felt that it wanted to mark the sacrifice of all the men that served in the regiment during the First World War, which had, of course, finished only a few years before. The museum continued in one form or another right through, changed its name a couple of times for quite a while, was known as the Queen's Lancashire Regiment. As various amalgamations took place, the Loyals amalgamated with the East Lancashire Regiment and the South Lancashire Regiment to form the Queen's Lancashire. It's a great long history. But we changed the name just a couple of years ago to reflect the fact that we do represent all these different regiments, and indeed the historic regiments that fought the two World War Wars, in which, frankly, nearly every family in Lancashire will have some connection or other.
Yes, we're a county of families, really, aren't we? And rather than waifs and strays that you get in other places, there are long histories in Lancashire of families going back generations.
Yes, I think it is the sort of county where it is the sort of part of the country where deep roots are put down and families remain for generations. And as I say, 3 of our regiments, namely the Loyals, which was Preston's own regiment, the East Lancs, which is the East Lancashires, as the name implies, was Blackburn, Burnley, Accrington. Famous Accrington Pals, for instance, was a battalion of the East Lancashire Regiment, and the South Lancashire Regiment, which was based on Warrington and St Helens. And basically any family that has lived in this part of Lancashire has roots in this part of Lancashire going back for anything more than a generation or two. I guarantee that if you scratch the surface, you will find some family member who served in one or more of our regiments. That's why our museum is so important, we believe.
So what was it like at the museum before the opening, before the work was done?
Well, we were very proud of it. It has one of the biggest regimental archives of any regimental museum in the country. Which means that we have an awful lot of material, written material, boxed material in files, which help people with family research when they want to do it. But to be honest with you, the main display areas were somewhat tired. Some of the display cases, for instance, had been there for nearly 90 years. They were some of the original cases dating from the 1920s. With the coming anniversary of the First World War, we felt that in order to properly recognise the sacrifice of the men of our regiments, they deserved a decent museum with upgraded display areas, more modern display areas, use of modern interactive digital displays and the like, in order to more properly recognise their sacrifice.
What's happening tomorrow then? Is there something quite special?
Yes, it's being officially reopened. We never actually closed. We're a bit like the Windmill Theatre. We never close. We haven't closed during the refurbishment, which has actually taken a total of about 4 years. It has revamped 3 of our major display areas, out of 5. And actually created one. We have created a badly needed library and education room, which I'm very pleased to say is being much used by the school children of Lancashire as part of their studies into World War One. The first part of the work was the construction of a modern display room, which we call the Somme Room, which deals with the histories of the regiment during the 19th century, Battle of Waterloo, Napoleonic Wars, all that kind of thing. And the most recent and most major redevelopment has been the main display room, which we call. I'm sorry, the previous room was the Waterloo Room. The main display room is the Somme Room. That, well, as we speak, people are desperately putting the final touches to it this afternoon. And the whole thing will be formally then reopened tomorrow by Bill Beaumont, the very famous rugby player.
Yeah.
And we'd like to think we've asked Bill to do it because he personifies exactly what we've been talking about, these links between the people of Lancashire and our regiments. It's only recently been discovered that as a result of an inquiry from Bill, that his grandfather, his paternal grandfather, played a very significant role indeed in one of the epic actions that the Loyals Regiment were involved in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, all the way back in 1917.
Wow.
So just shows you the sort of family continuity that we're talking about, and we thought it'd be particularly appropriate to ask Bill to come and open it, which he's doing tomorrow in front of various invited guests and very important people at midday tomorrow.
Midday, and it's finally the end of this 4-year journey.
It's finally the end of a 4-year, £200,000 major epic. We're only a small museum. We have one full-time curator, one part-time curator, and all the rest is done by volunteers. We're a charity. We receive only minimal support from the Ministry of Defence, and everything else we have to do ourselves. The preservation and maintenance of the collection, the development of the collection is all done by funds which we raise ourselves. So, an awful lot of work has gone by an awful lot of people has gone into this.
It's very much a labour of love, it sounds.
It is a labour of love. Military history is a subject that interests an awful lot of people. And increasingly at the moment, with all the interest in World War One, to be honest with you, we are absolutely swamped by families who are who want to research their ancestors who fought in World War One, great uncles, grandfathers, great grandfathers, and the like. We just can't keep up. There is just so much demand at the moment.
Wow, it's great that there's this almost resurgence of interest and that we're finding more of our personal history.
Yes, I think it is. I hope people don't see it as a glorification of war, because it's the very antithesis of that. We believe we owe it to the men who suffered and died in the First World War to remember their sacrifice, and we owe it to the children of tomorrow to remember what happened, so that we can make sure it never happens again.
I guess that's why it's so important that you now have a schoolroom and you can do the education.
Exactly so. We make it fun for the kids, you know. They come in and they have a teacher who's dressed up as a sergeant major who shouts at them and makes them do drill and present arms and that kind of thing. And they absolutely love it, and hopefully they learn quite a bit about the subject as well.
It's fascinating. It's amazing. What can people see if we were to come down and see the new? What have you got on it?
Well, we're open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, We're not all open all the week because the building, we share the building actually with the working offices of the regimental headquarters of the Duke of Lancaster's regiment. We're not open all week. We're open between, as I say, 10 and 4, Monday to Thursday, and on Saturday. And if you come down, you can see the rooms I've been talking about, which are absolutely packed with memorabilia from 300 years of regimental history all over the world. Our regiment is very proud of the fact that it is the only regiment from any army ever which has fought on every inhabited continent of the world. Nobody else, no other regiment in the British Army, not the French, not the Germans, not the Americans, not the Romans, not the Greeks, only us. Only our regiment has fought in North America, South America, Africa, Asia, and would you believe we were even involved in what passes for the only quote-unquote battle to be fought on Australian soil, which was the siege of the Eureka Stockade, which was an area that was set up and defended by some rioting miners in the 19th century. And also we've fought in the Maori Wars in New Zealand.
Wow. There's parts of Lancashire and everywhere in the world. That's
right. The Lancashire lads have fought all over the world. I mean, in particular at the moment, of course, we're looking back at World War One. And the tens of thousands of men from Lancashire alone, I mean hundreds of thousands of men from all over the country, tens of thousands of men from Lancashire alone who served with our regiments. Altogether, our three regiments, the East Lancashires, the South Lancashires and the Loyal North Lancashires, raised a total of over 60 battalions. That's the basic formation of the British Army. It's about 1,000, or it was then about 1,000 men, including, as I say, the many of the PALS battalions, the Accrington PALS, the Bolton PALS, the Preston Territorials, the Preston PALS, who were a D company of 7th Battalion of the Loyals. Altogether, we raised over 60 battalions just from Lancashire alone, just from our three regiments, never mind the other regiments that recruit in Lancashire. And that is more than the entire British Army has in the infantry today.
Gosh, those numbers, when you compare it to what we actually have these days, is a massive, massive difference.
Massive difference.
Well, thank you very much for keeping this history alive for us.
Well, I hope it has, and I hope people will come and see us.
Do.
We're a very friendly bunch. We like to make people welcome, and we're very proud of our museum, as you might have been able to tell. And as I say, do come and see us.
So it's
10 o'clock till 4 o'clock, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Saturdays.
You're listening to the Chat City interviews on 103.2 Preston FM.